duck?
Yes, a duck. A guest gave it to me.
And cheese, right?
Yeah. Thank you. So I see these lines in the water and I don't know what exactly it is, if it's waves or branches, I don't know. And then the water changes color. It's like green there, dark blue here. Look at this sunset. It's hard to look right now because it's super bright. It's been crazy. Y'all, I'm in Canada right now. I'm in Canada. And there's so many like city lights and then the sunset with the lights over there. Oh my god. Our ship is big. Good.
Pretty good. Quick hands up. Who's actually been here before? More than expected. Who's been to Canada before? Pretty much everyone else. So, for most of you, I get to be your introduction, which is amazing. Again, if you missed it, my name is Wesley. Our man of steel at the wheel tonight is Jim. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to ask any of us, opposed to standing up and walking all the way up here to the front of the bus. There are seatbelts on the bus. They're not mandatory, but they are recommended. What is mandatory? Again, staying seated. So if you have a question, whose name are you going to call out? Wesley. I love it. Or Jim. Perfect. If you need a washroom, there is one at the very back. The first person that can raise their hand with the answer gets this lovely Canada hat. And my question for you is, what's the capital of British Columbia? It's Victoria. Congratulations. Also, you guys gotta be quicker. She's a quick shooter here. Quick little thing for you. I did not grow up here. I grew up in a city called Calgary, but I've been visiting Victoria since about 1998. So, if you know anything about Calgary, you know we love our country music, the Stampede. So to get your energy, and more specifically mine up because I'm a little tired, can everyone give me a big yeehaw as we leave port?
Yeehaw!
Welcome aboard. So I want everyone to make a quick little mental note. All of the land that we're currently on was formerly the ceded territory of the Lekwungen or the Songhees Esquimalt speaking First Nations. So the British have been here since about the mid-1800s, but again, the First Nations have been here for thousands of years. So just keep that one in your back pocket. Now, quick little thing, the port that we're leaving right now, this is the busiest port in all of Canada. So each summer, we're expecting to see about 400 cruise ships, which is estimated to bring about $2.7 billion of tourism to our city.
Oh my
So thank you very much for visiting Victoria. You are the entire reason that I get to eat ramen noodles tonight. Thank you very much. Don't worry, they're fancy. I sprinkle little green onions on them, they're good. We're gonna take a quick right-hand turn here, and we are entering one of the oldest, most historic neighborhoods in Western Canada. This is the beautiful neighborhood of James Bay. So many of these homes here were built in the 1860s, the 1870s, 1880s, and are designated as heritage sites. So if you were lucky enough to buy a home here in the 1970s, a 2-bedroom would cost you about $70,000. That same 2-bedroom nowadays is about 1.5 million USD. So very, very desirable land, but you guys feel a little extra bougie, so we want this waterfront property here. So even that little tiny white house to the left-hand side, most of these are asking anywhere from 3 all the way up to about $8 million here.
Oh my God.
But there's good news. If you do have a home in James Bay, you don't actually need to buy an alarm clock, because every morning at 7:30, you're going to be woken up by the sounds of horses trotting by. So you save yourself about 15 bucks right there. Now, if you guys look off to the right, does everybody see those lights across the water there?
Yeah.
Now, those lights are actually just below the Olympic Mountains, and that's Washington State. So we're only about 25 miles away, close enough where I often get a message saying, congratulations, you owe us $35 in roaming fees. But we are on Vancouver Island, not in Vancouver. Since we're on Vancouver Island, there's no land bridges connecting us. So if you want to get back to Washington, you either need to take a ferry, a cruise ship, a plane, a helicopter, or if your name was Marilyn Bell in the 1950s, you could swim 10.5 hours that direction towards the city of Port Angeles. You are welcome to try it tonight, but I'm very much not going to join you for that trip. Now, during the day, you notice that this is a very active city. I apologize that the ship is here at night, but a lot of people come here because of our climate. We have the most mild climate in all of Canada. So during the summer, it pretty much never gets hotter than about 80 degrees, and in the winter, it almost never drops below 32. So for that reason, we attract a very large retiree population. Now, you're gonna love this. When I was growing up, Victoria had an expression for the city. It was known as the city of the newlyweds, nearly deads, flower beds, and potheads. Nothing has changed, except nowadays we do have a lot of luxury boutiques in our downtown core, as well as quite the nightlife. So we have those core 4 foundations, but we got a little bit extra nowadays. And again, if you did miss it, just take a quick peek off to your right at Washington State and the city of Port Angeles. Now, quick little comment. The first few sites that we see are a little bit difficult to spot because, again, it is nighttime. I'm going to describe them as best as I can, but if you have any questions, please feel free to walk up and talk to me a little bit later on. Once we actually hit the downtown core, absolutely everything will be beautifully lit up. Otherwise, again, the first few stops, a little bit tough to see. So, if we look to the left-hand side, I'm going to show you one of the first stops here. So just to the left, right where this group of people is walking off here, you'll see 2 things. There's a sign that says mile 0 marker, and then just behind the sign, there's a statue of a gentleman that looks like he's limping. The mile 0 marker, that is the start of the Trans-Canada Highway in Canada. It is a 4,800-mile road from west coast to east coast, longest highway on the planet. Take you about 65 hours to drive it. I have never personally done it, as my butt would not last in a car seat for 64 hours, but again, you're welcome to try that. The statue, however, some of you might actually recognize his name. So that is a statue of a local Canadian hero named Terry Fox. Now, if you know anything about Terry Fox, back in the 1980s, at 18 years old, he lost his leg to cancer. Now, he decided that he was going to use this to do a little bit of good, and he wanted to run across the entirety of our country with his prosthetic to raise money for cancer research. So, started on the east coast of Canada, sadly only made it about halfway to Thunder Bay, Ontario before he passed away, but he did get the ball rolling and was able to help raise over $865 million for cancer research here in Canada. So, anyone that grew up here in the 90s or the 2000s, very familiar with Terry Fox Day. Well, they'll shut down school districts, let the kids run around the school, blow off some of that extra steam, and then collect some additional donations for the parents. Now I'm gonna get you to look to the right. On the right-hand side here, you're gonna see some beautiful flower beds, a couple art features, lots of Gary oak trees, and tons of green space. All this area to our right, this is 200 acres of land known as Beacon Hill Park. This is our crown jewel of the city. We've got lots of athletic fields, polo, cricket, even some putting greens if you got to work on your short game like I do. But this all used to be privately owned, and it was actually gifted to the city on 3 restrictions. 1, we can never put a fence around it. 2, we can never charge any fees for entry. And 3, no commercial business are on the grounds. So if you mind slowing up a little bit here, Jim. Everyone, if you look to the right-hand side, and you look through these trees, you're going to see some beautiful water features, a couple lit up water fountains, and then a stunning stone bridge in the background. Some of you might actually recognize that bridge. Is anybody on board the bus a fan of Hallmark movies? Yeah, a couple people, yeah, me too. That has been in 25 different Hallmark movies. If you don't recognize it, sprinkle a little bit of fake snow, add a couple making out, and you can kind of put 2 and 2 together. If you are more of an animal lover and you're not a big fan of the sappy movies, there's a known fact that behind that bridge is a hauled out log, which every single summer season welcomes 50 local turtles that call it their home. So you can spend a whole weekend in Beacon Hill Park and not even make a dent. Looking to the left-hand side of the bus, just in the corner here, you're gonna see a beautiful red brick schoolhouse. This is the unfortunately named South Park School. I promise you, there is 0 relation to the show, but that is known as one of the oldest continually operating schoolhouses in Western Canada. I talked about the Lekwungen First Nations. If you look to the left-hand side of the bus, just past these lanterns, you're gonna see some beautiful hand-carved totem poles just peeking through the trees here. And if you can't see them, don't worry, because we're gonna drive past the carving house where they were actually created. So as we go through these lights, I want everyone to look behind us and to the left, and you're gonna see a building with a mural along the side of it that looks like a big face. That is the Chief Mungo Martin carving house. So that's where a lot of our local totem poles were carved, including one of them in Beacon Hill Park, which is actually the tallest in the planet at 127 feet tall. Now, we've entered the downtown core of the city, so again, everything's gonna be easy to see now. On the left-hand side of us, this big glass dome, this is the Victoria Conference Center. It's about 79,000 square feet. Nothing too crazy. It's the 2nd largest in the province here. But on the right-hand side, you're gonna see a very familiar green and white logo sitting on a wall there. Yes, we do indeed have Starbucks. We are classy enough to Tim Hortons, better known as Timbits. If you're wondering why we're going to a little local cafe, you better watch your tongue. Those are fighting words. Tim Hortons is actually our biggest food producer in all of the country. And this is my first tour of the night, but this is going to be my 3rd visit to Tim Hortons today. So it very much is a staple if you got the caffeine jitters like myself. I will leave it up to you guys whether or not it's better than Starbucks, but little local tip, if it's not better than Starbucks, you actually have to walk back to the cruise ship. So you guys got free will, you know your options, you know the risks. I want you to look all the way down the street to the right-hand side, and you're going to see one of the most beautiful religious buildings in our city, the Christ Cathedral Church with its beautiful stained glass and its stunning Gothic style. Now that building itself actually burnt down twice. On the 2nd time that it burnt down, they realized maybe making a church out of wood wasn't the best idea. So they rebuilt it out of stone, and it's lasted for over 100 years ever since. Another very famous religious site on the left-hand side of us, this is the St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church, also very well known for its intricate stained glass. That building itself was completed in 1868, so it is one of our older ones here. As we're going straight, I'm going to start to talk to you a little bit about how Victoria actually became Victoria. So directly below us right now, we're passing over Fort Street. So if you lived here in the mid-1800s and you look to the left, there was absolutely nothing there except some grass, the water's edge, and a big wooden structure called Fort Victoria. Now, the fort was set up by a company called the Hudson's Bay to trade furs and pelts with our local First Nations. See how it all kind of comes together. Once they realized there was quite the monetary opportunity, they outgrew Fort Victoria after about 20 years, demolishing it and then helping grow the city into what you see nowadays. Most of the original Hudson's Bay buildings no longer exist. There is one coming up a little bit further down the road that I'll make sure to point out to you, but again, I'll talk about it in about 2 minutes here. Malt has cultural menu items all around the world. Here in Canada, our item is poutine. If you don't know what that is, you get a big bowl of McDonald's fries, they put cheese curds on top of it, they pour brown gravy all over it, and it is the best hangover cure you have ever had in your entire life, I promise you. Again, there's other places you should probably eat in Victoria first, but if you're absolutely craving McDonald's, definitely try poutine. You're gonna see a red brick building with a big sign on it that says farm. So immediately to our left, back in 1880, that building used to be one of the largest and most well-known butchers in Victoria. Nowadays, that is one of the most profitable cannabis dispensaries in our city. So yes, cannabis is 100% legal here. What is super illegal is to tuck and roll off a moving bus, go in there, grab some wacky tobacco, bring it on the cruise ship, and then blame Wesley. So if you're looking for the devil's lettuce, you're gonna have to come back for a second trip, and you're gonna promise not to tattle on me, okay? That's the deal. Tax dollars, recently over the past few years, it's brought a couple $100 million into British Columbia here. So intersection, you're gonna see a beautiful red brick building on this corner with a stunning clock tower. This is one of my favorite buildings in the city. So this is the Victoria City Hall. Beautiful building, but it looks a little small, especially when you realize that our city has over 500,000 people. But we're not actually one city. We are 13 different municipalities all grouped together. So whenever there's a decision that needs to be made, it's not a 1 week affair. It is sadly a 1 decade affair. But again, you're from the States. You know all about politics being not so great. But again, we won't get into that. So if you look to the right-hand side, you're gonna see this beautiful stone carved building with the exterior from the late 1800s. This was the original site of the Hudson's Bay department store. You can actually see, it says the Hudson on it. The exterior has been left untouched. However, the interior has been renovated and updated into our local Victoria public market. So if you come here during the day, you can find some locally grown produce, some protein, some artisan-made products. And if you collect too many things, as all of us do, we're only human, you can get yourself a nice little mortgage in one of the 2-bedroom condos right above to store your gifts. Don't worry, it's super affordable. It's only about $1.1 million for the 2-bedroom condos. Now, part of my job as a tour guide is to convince people to come back to our beautiful city and potentially move here. Wink, wink. But I'm not really making a great case for myself. The reality of it is we are one of the most expensive cities in Canada to actually live, to the point that the government says you need to make $26 an hour just to make ends meet. That does not include rent. What? Or the fact that minimum wage is $16 and a 1-bedroom student apartment is $2,500 a month. So most people really do struggle to make ends meet here. So we have very much a hustle culture here of picking up multiple different roles, moonlighting in a variety of industries, like for example, a bus driver or a nighttime tour guide. And don't worry, Jim and I, we get lots of breaks off. We love our golf. We only work on days that end in Y, so there is some time off every now and then. Now, I've already spoiled it. We are heading to Tim Hortons, but I want to tell you a little bit about its founder. So, Tim Hortons was started by a gentleman named Miles Horton. He was a professional hockey player back in 1946. He played for 26 seasons for a variety of different teams, the most famous one being the Toronto Maple Leafs. But he was known for being a good player, but also he was known for how he fought his opponents. He didn't like using his fist. He would throw off his gloves, he would wrap his arms around you, give you a big bear hug, and squeeze as tightly as he could. Some of his opponents were quoted as saying they would have preferred to just be punched in the neck, as the bear hugs apparently hurt quite a bit more and the bruises lasted quite a bit longer. So you can imagine he was quite the eccentric man. Question every tour. On the left-hand side, you're going to see a sign that says Popeyes. That is not Popeyes Louisiana chicken. Yes, we do have them here. However, they are nowhere near as good as the States. We don't have green beans on our menu, and our biscuits are subpar at best. So you gotta speed. If you do want to go to Popeyes, though, that's just a little supplement store that you can get some pre-workout for the rest of the tour. You're going to see a red sign at a Petro-Canada station that says 212.9. Now, remember, that is per liter. When you convert that to gallons, it's roughly about $8.50 per gallon.
Oh,
so
no.
It is the second most expensive in the country. During the summer, though, we'll see that go as high as about $12 per gallon. So again, now you see why people choose to bike here.
Oh my gosh.
Fun little fact, if anyone on board has a new fancy electric bike, you have to be very careful here in Victoria, as we have police officers that hide in the bushes on our bike paths with their little radar guns. And if they track you going over 30 miles per hour, they will give you a $35 speeding ticket. Ask me how I know. If you want any extra donuts, any sort of specialty coffees, or Tim Hortons merchandise, one of the lovely ladies or gentlemen to the right of us will be able to give you a hand. Otherwise, again, everything that I've got for you is already paid for and covered, so we're good to go.
And there's a long line because shut up, but another one shut up for the box.
Okay, what can I get for you?
I got the decaf double.
Yeah, double, ready to go?
Thank
Ready
you.
waiting for it. Anytime.
So one, the coffee is good, and they have this like cool lid. So here, if you ask for a double, it is 2 sugars, 2 cream, and I got decaf coffee because I can't have caffeine. And it's actually good. It's definitely unique. I haven't had a flavor like this before. It has a slight vanilla flavor.
Yeah, let me go grab it. Here. So the first person that can raise their hand, you're gonna get this hat. And my question for you today is, does anybody know the name of the Canadian celebrity that recently had a sponsorship with Tim Hortons? Hands up, remember if you remember. No, it's not Drake. Anybody else? You guys know this? I'll give you a hint. He's a singer. Yeah. Nope. 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 Yeah. It's Justin Bieber. We got a believer on board the bus. I love it. Right here. Extra bag of Timbits. Give me your favorite Justin Bieber. And so, my very next one, I got a lovely little beer koozie. To the first person that can raise their hand and tell me what is the most sold beer in Canada. It's Molson Canadian. Congratulations. There's that for you. Fun little fact for you. Here in Canada, we don't get beer bellies. We get Molson muscles here. So, quick little lightning round for you. This time, you're going to get a fridge magnet and a bag of Timbits. These are the toughest questions. Question number one. What's the name of the best bus driver in Victoria? It's Jim. I got this one for you. Congratulations. And I got one more. I feel like you know where this is going. Hands down the back. What's the name of the best tour guide? It's not me. I'm sorry. But if you do find out who it is, you should let me know.
Wesley, you gotta come to the middle.
Yeah, or somewhere.
Wesley.
Yeah,
Wesley, you gotta come and ask
we
in the
race
middle.
it all the
We're
time.
racing.
Oh, don't worry. I've got prizes. No one's going to leave empty-handed.
Okay, thank you.
Brick castle-like structure that you're going to see on the right. This is known as our Bay Street Armory. Now, this building was built originally in the early 1900s to train some of our local militia here. However, currently, this is used by our military for training and storage. So you're going to see some camoed vehicles just tucked around the side here in their little fenced area. Some firearms, some battle plans, a little bit of everything. And quickly touching on firearms, I know it's a sensitive topic. If you wish to move here and purchase some, it'll take you about 3 months to pass a background check for a long gun. If you want a handgun, best of luck to all of you as they've been entirely banned.
Yes.
Again, no claps or boos or anything. It's just a fact. I don't want to start a little war here, but again, that is a fact here in Victoria. Now, who likes Taylor Swift? Yeah, me too. Who likes earthquakes caused by Taylor Swift? Yeah, no one's like those. So, obviously, we're not quite as big as Seattle, but if you look to the left-hand side, this is our Save on Foods Memorial Arena. This is about 7,000 seats. We've seen everything from Carlos Santana, ZZ Top, Avril Lavigne, Jordan Peterson, Jimmy Carr, and back in 1925, we had a team called the Victoria Cougars that actually won the Stanley Cup. Now, they don't exist anymore, as after about 2 years after they won the Stanley Cup, almost the entire team was dissolved. But if anyone on the bus is from Detroit, most of the players actually went on to play for the Detroit Red Wings. So you're welcome for the donuts and you're welcome for the hockey players. Now, we're going to take a quick right-hand turn and we're going to head down Fisgard towards the Chinatown district of Victoria. So quick mural to make note of. As we take this turn, look to the left. This beautiful mural along this construction site was done by the Lekwungen First Nations. It shows off some of the local animals we have here on Vancouver Island. Sadly, as you can see, a couple of the panels have been set on fire, which is absolutely a shame, as it is one of my favorite pieces done there by the Lekwungen First Nations. If you look to the right-hand side, though, you're going to see an emblem on a wall there glowing in white lights just to the right of us with 2 stags and a fox. That is one of the only remaining Hudson's Bay emblems in our city. So this building to the right, this is the Hudson's Bay department store. We passed by it earlier. But since the Hudson's Bay is not necessarily seen as the most culturally sensitive of companies, as they did have a role in pushing the First Nations away from their homeland, again, a lot of the actual emblems have been removed, but there are still a few around the city as a quick little reminder. One of the Chinese families that immigrated here in 1905, and just across the street from it, on the right, you will see our traditional Chinese schoolhouse. So beautiful building. The interior uses a lot of a woodworking style called joinery. If you don't know what that is, it's making tight-fitting wood joints with minimal to no glue, nails, or screws. Story behind that building, during World War II, Chinese students were not actually allowed to attend public school here in Victoria, so they raised up enough money privately to open their own public school. Now, directly in front of us, where these people are standing directly in the middle of the road, these are the gates of harmonious interest. These were a gift from our sister city in China, as well as these 2 lion statues on either side, both of which are actually time capsules set to open in the next 30 years. But take a look above us, the beautiful lanterns. Many of these restaurants and apartments are owned by the original descendants that came here in the 1800s. But I want everyone to look to the left, and you're gonna see probably the most famous site in our Chinatown. As we slow down here, there's a little alleyway right below that red lantern with a metal gate. That alleyway, that is Fan Tan Alley. That is one of the smallest legal streets in North America.
Oh my gosh.
There's actually homes down there with addresses, but at the inception of Chinatown, that was the criminal underbelly. That had the gambling halls, the opium dens, the triad members at the metal gate trying to stop police officers, giving their associates as much time as possible to hide their contraband. Nowadays though, there's just some nice little condos and a couple little boutiques. But has anybody seen the movie Bird on a Wire with Goldie Hawn and Mel Gibson? In that movie, they drive a motorcycle down Fan Tan Alley, but they actually had to cut 3 inches off of either side of the handlebars just to make the bike fit. It is a fun little spot, but if you're looking to get a nice photo there, you're gonna have to fight off with about 2,000 other university students trying to get the best Instagram photo possible. So good luck getting a solo photo. Now, as we've taken a left-hand turn, we have entered Wharf Street. This is the oldest street in Victoria. So many of these buildings were built again in the 1850s, 1860s, including this pub to the left-hand side. This is Swan's Pub. So beautiful wrought iron brought from San Francisco. The building itself actually used to be a seed and fertilizer warehouse, so it didn't exactly smell the best when somewhere you'd want to go for a pint and a burger. Thankfully, it was converted into this beautiful pub, and because of that, there's a big plaque behind the bar that says Ugly Duckling, symbolizing how an ugly duckling to a beautiful swan. Now, on the left-hand side, you're gonna see a beautiful piece of artwork. It looks like some tulips growing through the ground there with a canoe in the center. That is another piece done by our local First Nations. That is called the Commerce Canoe. I will talk about this bridge a little bit later, but I want everyone to look to the left because I don't want you to miss the most beautiful sight in Victoria. If you look to the left, you are about to see our Victoria Inner Harbor with our beautiful Parliament building all lit up in its twinkling white lights. And don't worry, if you cannot get a photo, we're actually going to drive directly in front of all those buildings so we get nice and close for we can update your TikTok, your LinkedIn, whatever you guys need. We'll make it happen. Now, earlier on the tour, I did mention Victoria is not actually one city, but we're 13. We've actually left the city of Victoria. So we are now in the city of Esquimalt, which is currently where the Lekwungen First Nations preside. So they're about 15 minutes up island, so just a little bit straight ahead of us. So the story is, the area that we're gonna spend about 10 minutes taking some nice photos at is when the First Nations children were old enough to walk, they would take their cribs into the inner harbor and they would push them in the water without the kids in them, as these waters have been said to have mystical powers and have a lot to do with maturity and adulthood. Now, with that considered, we're gonna get nice and close for photos. Please don't feel the need to jump into our inner harbor. I am legally obligated to jump in after you with my little swim floaties, but again, that might put a little bit of a damper on the rest of the tour. So just be super careful while you're out there. I will be out there with you. See anything less desirable, please do not fault Jim and myself. It's happened before. So instead of looking to left and making long eye contact with the lovely couple having fun, let's look to the right-hand side. And if we look through these buildings, we might be able to catch a quick glimpse of your cruise ship if it hasn't left without us. So if we look to the right, let's see if we can see your cruise ship. Okay, so I see a cruise ship. I don't know if I see your cruise ship. 50-50 shot. Worst case scenario, I'm sure I can fit 51 of you in my 2-bedroom apartment. Make you guys crimps and lattes. Now, I do actually know it's there, so when we get to Songy's Point, take a quick look over to the right, again, over to that starting neighborhood of James Bay across the water, and you will be able to see the tail end of your ship as we pull through. Now, as we get to Songy's Point, it is pretty much 9:15. I'm going to give us 15 minutes. So, a little more at exactly 9:30. I want everyone to meet back at the bus. So one more time, when are we going to meet back on the bus?
9:30.
Perfect. Normally some joker decides to say 9:45 and then that's the person I kick off the bus. So we will meet back here at 9:30. Again, we're going to go up to the inner harbor. So it depends on where we find a parking spot on the actual downtown. This will bring you all the way up to the center of the harbor where I'll be right there, okay? Okay.
Je pense que j'ai le seul parlement au Canada qui a des vidéos.
Look at that moon.
It is a beautiful place. Are across the water. I'm going to talk a little bit about them, starting from the right and going to the left. So starting on the right hand side, the big building with all the twinkly white lights, the domes on top of it, that is our Parliament building. Directly below that, the building with all the stone columns, that's our steamship terminal. That used to be one of the largest custom ports on Western Canada. However, nowadays, it's just a nice restaurant. To the left of that, the building that's glowing in red lights, that is the Royal BC Museum. It's one of our crown jewels of the country. We have a lot of international exhibits that are loaned here, including a lot from the Smithsonian. To the left of that, we have the giant castle-like structure with the Canadian flag just below the crane there. That is the Empress Hotel. So whenever our former queen would come and stay here before she passed away, she had her own private suite in the top right of the hotel. You can actually stay there you can stay there nowadays, but it's about $2,000 a night or about $5 USD. So it's not too bad. She got it. So the company.
Like, I love the reflection in the water. Isn't it kind of crazy? Like, I'm in Canada, Victoria, British Columbia. Very expensive place to live.
The first person, preferably in the back, can raise their hand and tell me. Raise your hand. And you can tell me, what was the name of the gentleman that tried to run across Canada with this prosthetic?
Oh my gosh, I don't know.
Terry Fox, he got it. I love it. How'd you know that one? You just listened?
I listened.
Oh, thank you for listening. Clearly means I'm doing a good job. I'm going to give you a Canadian beer koozie with a little moose antlers on it, and, just because why not, a little moose cookie cutter to the first person that can tell me with their hand raised. This one's a tough one. What's the national sport of Canada?
Hockey.
It's not hockey.
Or lacrosse.
It is lacrosse. Congratulations. Guys, all night, so I'm going to give her an extra prize too.
Yeah, there you go, girl.
There's that for it. And I already made a comment, but don't worry if you guys didn't. So there's about 500 of them. And if you can imagine during the Christmas season, it's someone's job to go around to each one and replace those white lamps with red and green for the home.
Oh my gosh.
It reflects off the inner harbor. It creates one of the most beautiful winter wonderlands you've ever seen, minus the snow, which unless you're a professional skier, I'm sure you don't mind a bit of a warmer winter. Volkswagens in North America.
So
if you like the old Westphalia vans, they're all over the city. It's very common for locals here to pick up classic Volkswagens and turn them into their daily drivers to save a little bit of money. Like for myself, who owns
$4 million,
costing taxpayers $111 million all in, but it glows blue at night, so that is totally definitely not worth it. Now we look to the right, that's our inner harbor. If you take a quick peek to the left-hand side, that's our commercial harbor. Not nearly as exciting, but you'll see a little sign that says craft. It's one of the breweries that ships internationally from the waters here, as well as there's some sailboats down there that are docked. Thankfully, I was fortunate enough to be a part of that program when I was in middle school. And actually pushed me to move to Victoria. During the day, that is a very common spot for our film industry. We'll have lots of trailers with camera and sound equipment. It's very easy to film here as the weather is nice year-round, so you can pretend it's almost any season. So a little fun fact for you, a lot of TV shows and films that are meant to be set in Chicago are actually filmed here in Victoria, as our architectural design is very similar, but we don't deal with those brutal winters. Victoria's bastion. So if we look to the left-hand side, you're going to see a couple pubs, a couple bars, a couple nightclubs in here. Again, and probably a bunch of inebriated university students. But if you guys like ghost stories, and you look to the left, just inside Bastion Square, there's that little staircase. Right at the top of that staircase, that used to be the home of the Victoria Jail and Gallows. So they say if you come here after 4:30 in the morning, you can sometimes hear the sound of rough rope being dragged on concrete. That is the sound of Sir Matthew Bixby, better known as the hanging judge, looking for his next guilty victim. On a less super dark and morbid note, some of you noticed that there was some float planes in the harbor there. We have a large fleet of them, also one of the only electric float planes on the planet, and they do use part of this inner harbor as a runway. Now the reason I tell you this, we have a lot of orca whales that will often make their way into the harbor here. So what that means is this is one of the only airports on the planet that actually has to taxi their planes to breaching orca whales. Now, just just on the right, does everyone see that little boat with the 2 holes in the side of it? That is an old naval vessel that was recently converted into the city's high-end spa. So if you go there during the day, you can get a hot stone massage, a eucalyptus wrap, cold plunge, or you can sit on that balcony with me and we can drink mimosas to our heart's content. It's more my style anyways. Now, we're gonna take a quick right-hand turn here and we're gonna come on to some of the most famous buildings. So this is where you're definitely gonna wanna get your camera out here. If you look straight ahead and soon to be on the left of the bus, this beautiful castle-like structure, this is the Empress Hotel to our left. This building was built in 1908. They serve about 500,000 cups of tea every year to over 100,000 guests. They're most famous for their high tea, which it's about $85 a person. Totally worth it, especially if you like those little cucumber sandwiches or those dense little scones. Fun little fact for you. If you're a fan of gin, you might recognize the name the Empress brand gin, as there was a beautiful gin created by one of the barbacks there, which is a stunning purple elderflower gin. So if you ever see a purple bottle of Empress gin, make sure to pick up some. It is good. Now, just on the right here, this during the day we get about 10 to 20,000 pedestrians. So this is often where lots of entertainers are. Just off to the right, one of my favorite, his name is Darth Fiddler. He is an elderly gentleman that dresses up as Darth Vader. He comes to the port here and plays his little violin for hours on end. He's pretty much universally loved. There is also some gentlemen that play bagpipes, but again, they are less universally loved. Now, directly ahead of us, this is what everyone's probably waiting for and what you probably think of when you think of Victoria. Directly ahead and soon to be on our left, this is our stunning Parliament building. So a couple things to make note of. We have our War Memorial on the left-hand side, closest to us. Obviously, take a look at the beautiful copper-capped domes here. There's another statue right in the center, which is a statue of Queen Victoria, who our city was named after. Also, there's a horse carriage on our left if you missed it. But there's one more statue. At the very top of the biggest dome, there's a golden statue of Captain Vancouver, one of the first British officers that charted these waters. He was known as an incredible captain, but also a very humble man, as he named the entire city of Vancouver after himself and the entire island of Vancouver. Fun fact for you about that building. That building is the entire reason that I moved to Victoria about 3 years ago. I was a lighting designer and it was my job to quote the government of Canada to convert all 3,752 of those white lights over to LED. Thankfully, they said yes. As if they were to ask me to count again, I would have told them they were tough out of luck on that one. Now, if you look to the right, these big stone columns, this is the steamship terminal. I talked about it quick at Songy's Point, but this used to be a busy customs port. Then it was a wax museum. Now it's a beautiful restaurant that overlooks the harbor. Also to the right-hand side, in red here, this is our Blackball Ferry line. If anybody is local to Seattle or Port Angeles, this is where you would get on and off the ferry. So it's only about an hour and 30-minute trip. It's about about $30 for a walk-on ticket, about $75 for a drive-on. So if you are local, again, Washington State, come and visit Victoria for a weekend. Come and meet up with Jim and I, and we'll show you some of the local watering holes here in town. Buildings that are both inns and tea houses. The Huntington to the left, and then just next to it, also in those lovely twinkly white lights, this is the Pendray Manor. Now, the Pendray Manor, this is known as the most haunted building in all of Victoria. So it is very common for ghost hunters to come and stay there from across North America. I have never set foot in the property, as I believe in ghosts, so you could not pay me enough. But the story is, the original owner was told, never ever build on this land. You are currently on First Nations burial grounds.
Oh my gosh.
Well, of course, what did he do? He built a luxury home for him and his family, and upon the completion of the construction, they ran into misfortune after misfortune until the days of their death. Nowadays, though, it's a nice little spot to get a little bit of rest, get a little bit of tea, if you guys are brave enough, which I'm not. Little street here, you're going to see a building that's lit up, and it looks like a staircase, and there's a sign that says Laurel Point Inn. So just on the right, that building in the 1880s was one of the largest paint manufacturers on all of Vancouver Island. So when it burnt down, the government found out that they were dumping lead-based paint into our inner harbor. So not exactly the most environmentally conscious. So the government put $10 million into completely restoring the banks of our waters here. Even with that considered, we sometimes find seal paint cans floating in the harbor that are over 120 years old. So again, not all facts are good, but they are still facts. These hotels, this is where I'd recommend you stay, as it's a little bit further away from the hustle and bustle of the Empress, but it's still within walking distance of everything. Local tip number 2, to the left of the bus, beautiful Italian restaurante called El Covo. Very, very difficult to get reservations, but if you do know that you're coming to Victoria, plan ahead. It's a nice little stop to get some lunch or dinner. And other tip, to the right of you, that World Mart building, that's one of the only timeshares in the city. The tip for that is, don't get a timeshare. That's it.
Yeah.
And if you do have one, Jim and I would love to join you for a vacation and get your money's worth. Now, just to the right of the bus, you're going to see a blue sign that says Fisherman's Wharf. Down that road is a floating dock with about 20 different houseboats, a lot of which have been turned into restaurants. So if you go there during the day, you can get some of the freshest fish and chips you've ever had. They can actually bring the fish off the boat, chop them in front of you, throw in the fryer. You can have as much as you like, maybe till you're a little bit food comaed. If you decide that you need a nap, you can actually rent one of those houseboats on Airbnb, and it's one of the cheapest places to stay right now. This little fish market here is called Finest at the Sea. There's a little taco truck out front of it. They make the best fish tacos in all of Canada. Yes, that's my opinion, but it's correct. Back to Victoria, try it. I'm not affiliated with them in any way, but I do eat there multiple times a week, so trust me, it is worth it. Now, directly ahead of us, this big archway at the top of this building. This is home to the most expensive penthouse in our city. This is 2,800 square feet. It recently sold to an international buyer for $14 million. Now, it does have views of the outer and the inner harbor, so it is quite stunning, but I don't know if it's $14 million worth of stunning.
No.
It has not left without you. But about 2 weeks ago, just behind your ship, we had a yacht with 4 gentlemen and a dog that capsized. Well, of course, they made enough room for the Molson Canadian six-packs, but they did not leave enough room for the life jackets. So they floundered around in the water for a few hours, but thanks to our Canadian Coast Guard, all 4 gentlemen and the pupper were found safe and sound. But if you guys did bring your swimming gear, take a quick jump off the bow of your boat, dive down to the bottom of the ocean, and there's a couple free cases of Molson Canadian that you guys are welcome to have. Does everyone see this white building with the red awning? Yes, everyone sees this?
Yeah.
No.
Stay away from that. That is not where you're going to get back on the boat. That is the wrong side. You are going to get back on at Pier A. So just next to your ship, there's that blue building there. There's a little gift shop inside that I recommend you take a look at, as it's 100% locally owned, so you won't find a lot of mass-produced items. There's a lot of artisan products, even some woodworking from people like myself. So if you want to get a piece of Victoria, go inside the gift shop. If currency is more what you're looking for, there's a little exchange. You get some loonies, some toonies, or some of our plastic bills, which if you didn't know are said to be indestructible, but if you got kids or grandkids.
And we're at 25%. There's items and ID stock.
Okay, there we are.
So I kind of regret not buying maple syrup from Canada, but so Canada's cool. It's cool that I'm in the city. The city in Canada, and I definitely learned a lot today. Like, Victoria is just a very expensive city. Like, it's crazy, but it is beautiful year round.